ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयम् नमामि भगवत्पादं शंकरं लोकशंकरं। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. So we are seeing the negation of the five koshas, and in that the longest part is this Manomaya kosha. So Shankaracharya ji has taken quite a lot of effort to describe this Manomaya kosha and what are the various aspects of this Manomaya kosha. Different analogies are used. And we are on verse number 179. Where it was said, Adhyasa doshat purushasya samshatihi. Because of the adhyasa, false identification, this transmigration is happening. Adhyasa bandhas tvamunaiva kalpitaha. And mind itself is responsible for this superimposition. So adhyasa is superimposition. Rajas tamas doshavato avivekinaha. And one who has rajas and tamas, to that person, this adhyasa happens. False identification, not knowing the self, and then consequent false identification, superimposition, not knowing the rope and then seeing the snake. That is because of rajas and tamas, veiling on one hand, projecting on the other. To whom does it happen? Avivekino, the person who has not yet used or not awakened the vivek. And what is the result of this? Janmadi dukkhasya nidanametat. And this is the cause of birth, misery of birth, etc. So now, having said that, he concludes that this mind is full of avidya and one should strive to get out of this. So 180, Ataprahurmano vidyam panditas tattvadarshinaha yenaiva bhramyate vishvam vayunaiva brahmandalam. So panditaha tattvadarshinaha. So in our culture, who is a pandit? A person who has realized the self is called as pandit, not somebody who is just doing some puja part. Pandit means panda atma vishaya buddhi yasya asti sa pandita. Who has the realization of the self, that person is called pandit. And here it is, both are used. Pandit and tattvadarshi, they mean the same, one who knows the self. What do these great masters say? Ataprahur mano avidyam. Hence, after saying all this, Shankaracharya ji concludes, Atah means thus. So the result of all that which I said till now, especially these verses from 174 to 179, which discuss the nature of how the mind keeps a person bound. So the conclusion is, Atah prahuhu mano avidyam. Mind is avidya. And what does this do? Yenaiva bhramyate vishwam. As long as I'm identified with the mind, then I'm experiencing the whole world, and then this cycle of birth and death goes on. So the human being goes round and round in this cycle of birth and death. So that is compared to how Vayuna eva abhramandalam. By the wind, the clouds are pushed here and there. In the same way, the jiva is pushed here and there into various yonis, various births, because of the ignorance where the mind doesn't know that its own nature is divine, and then it falsely identifies with the body, and this cycle of birth and death continues. Hence, what has to be done? Mind must be purified and then ignorance must be removed. So there are two aspects to this mind. One is the purity of mind is not there, and other is the knowledge of the self is not there. Purity and clarity, two aspects are necessary. And one will not come without the other. If purity of mind is not there, clarity will not come. When we say that we know but we are not able to implement, the reason is because the purity is not enough. And so the clarity is also not actually 100% clarity. It is just a informative knowledge. If purity is there, clarity will be 100%. Properly one will experience, one will not have gap between knowing and doing. Hence, to strive to get out of avidya, what should one do? That is now the next process, next part, where he gives the solution. Actually, he has given this earlier also. The whole process of all the steps of sadhana he has given earlier. Purification of the mind, unification of the mind, go to the Guru, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasana, all that he has given before. Again he is reiterating that part. Tanmana shodhanam karyam prayatnena mumukshuna vishuddhe sati chaitasmin mukti karaphalayate. So he says tanmana shodhanam karyam. Hence purify this mind. Actually, that can become one major reason why we do whatever we do. That whatever I am doing, is it leading me to purity of mind or impurity of mind? Does it make my ego lesser? Does it make my avidya lesser? The false identification with the body lesser? Which means, does kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, they become less or they become more? So the seeker has to think like that. Tanmana shodhanam karyam. So the word shodhanam means purify. In some contexts, people think shodhanam also means to search. No, but here it means purify. Tanmana shodhanam karyam. Hence the mind must be purified because the impurities of the mind are what bind us. And how should one do it? Prayatnena mumukshuna, with great effort. If one says, no, in time my mind will get purified automatically. Many times one thinks that in time we will get vairagya. By itself vairagya will come because as we grow old, we have seen so many things, we will get vairagya. Not necessary. Hence he says prayatnena, with effort, with great effort one has to put to cultivate this purity of mind, and it requires more effort to sustain that purity. Now and then one can live in sattva guna, but to sustain that requires, that is the effort, that is sadhana. Like we go to a camp, spiritual camp, let us say. So 5 days, 7 days, you are able to live in a sattvic environment. The food also is sattvic, no onion, no garlic, not much spicy, very simple food. Environment is sattvic, we are cut off from many other distractions and a particular disciplined schedule we follow. We are able to do meditation, reflection, solitude, prayer, arati, all that, group discussion. So there is one particular way in which we follow the whole routine. So few days we are able to, and we feel very happy, inspired. Now to sustain that when we come back, that is a sadhana. Not necessarily same schedule, but some of those aspects. Because what we got in the camp was a glimpse of how it is to withdraw from the sense objects, how it is to live in self-control, what it is to meditate. So we got a glimpse. Now with effort that has to be sustained. It says, Tanmana shodhanam karyam prayatnena mumukshuna. Because the past vasanas will come, society influence will be there, some pressure will come on us, and we are forced to do some things. But that's where the sadhana is. That a few things we hold on saying, this I will not compromise at all. 2 malas of japa every day must happen. little bit of study must happen. Some amount of, let us say, exercise must happen. So one fixes up certain aspects and says that in spite of whatever it is my schedule, whatever is my work, this must happen. So that is the effort, that is sadhana. So prayatnena mumukshuna. Then what happens? That mind becomes purified. Then what will happen? Vishuddhe sati chaitasmin. When this mind has been purified, mukti karafalayate. Liberation will be as effortless as a fruit in one's hand. Karafalayate. How a fruit is available. So easily one can see, one can eat, one can enjoy it. In the same way, one experiences freedom as one's own nature. Mukti karafalayate. Effortlessly one will experience. So what is preventing us is this impurities of the mind and the false notions that I am this body, mind, intellect. So this one verse speaks about purification, that the mind must be purified. How do we purify the mind? Karma Yoga is the sadhana to purify the mind. Work in the world with dedicated, with the attitude of dedication. That is one part. Then try to live in maximum sattva guna. Do upasana, make the mind single pointed. Study, reflect. Then all the various sadhanas, japa, upvas, yatra, puja, tirtha, bhajan, so many sadhanas. All these are to purify the mind. And alertness, that whatever I am doing, is it purifying me or not? Is it making me more and more quieter, selfless? Then the mind which is focused on that purification will get purified. Gurudev used to give an analogy that what is an impurity? So an impurity is something that does not belong to that thing which has come into that. So like water. So the stone does not belong to the water, but now it has come inside water. So what is not the nature of that thing, if that comes into it, that is called the impurity. So what is the nature of the mind? Really speaking, the mind's nature is sattva guna. But with long practice of this rajo guna and tamo guna, one has become attached to that. So that has become the impurity. That one has to remove. So sadhana can be viewed from different standpoints. If one says every day I want to live in sattva guna, rajas and tamas, I must reduce. Rajas does not mean work and tamas does not mean sleep. The attachments or the binding factors. So greed, attachment, insecurity, rajoguna binding factors. Laziness, ignorance, procrastination is tamoguna binding factors. So now I can say that I want to live every day in sattva guna. So then approach sadhana through that way. Or we say that every day whatever I am doing should make my mind pure and selfless. So then that approach. Or find some of these uncompromising aspects, that every day this much japa, this much study, this much exercise, whatever, some niyam we have to fix, and then say this has to happen. Or say that every work I do will be dedicated to the Lord. So either of these approaches or a combination, whichever way it works, but what has to be done? Prayatnena mumukshuna. The mind must be purified with effort. Now having purified it with effort, then what has to be done? See, the effort is towards what? Because it says muktihi karafalayate. So the goal is mukti. Purification of the mind is not the goal. Purification of the mind is the means. So we should not forget that part, that this is the means to mukti. With a pure mind, when one contemplates on the self, realization happens. And so that goal of mukti must be there in the mind always, that who am I? I am a mumukshu. So when it says prayatnena mumukshuna. So my identity should be I am a mumukshu. I am not even a sadhak. I am a mumukshu, because the word mumukshu has a lot of intense burning for liberation. So that intensity is so much more. If one says that I am a sadhak but feels that I am a mumukshu, then that is fine. But sometimes one feels I am a sadhak, so one is little. Sometimes some laid back attitude comes. That dhire dhire we will reach there. So that intensity that no, moksha is here and now. In this life. In this life itself is manda mumukshutvam. Tivra mumukshutvam is moksha is here and now. So that feeling that whatever I am doing, I am a seeker of liberation, I am mumukshu. So purification of the mind is the means and liberation is the goal. And the liberation comes through self-knowledge. So now that part comes in the next verse, where he says, Mokshaika satya vishayeshu ragam nirmulya sanyasya cha sarva karma sachraddhaya shravanadi nishthaha rajasvabhavam sadhunoti buddhehe. So he says, Mokshaika satya, with one single pointed desire that I want moksha. Mokshaika satya. Vishayeshu ragam nirmulya. Remove the attachment from the sense objects. So again he has given some further steps that you remove the attachments. What he said earlier, prayatna, that is explaining here. That what is the prayatna? Prayatna is remove these attachments. Vishayeshu ragam nirmulya. So he didn't say drop the object. He didn't say drop connecting with the object. Of course, what is adharmic, what is not conducive, one should drop. But when we live in the world, there will be some sense object or the other with which we have to transact. So we cannot run away from sense object. And now our culture anyway doesn't speak about running away and escapism. So then what has to be done? What is binding is not the object. What is binding is my attachment to the object. So he says, Vishayeshu ragam nirmulya. Remove the attachment towards the sense objects. So for some time, if it is required to go away from the object, one can do that also. But the key is not to just go away. The key is having gone away or having stayed, whatever one is doing. Remove the dependency that without this I cannot be happy. One should actually make a list of what all are the things without which I cannot be happy psychologically. And deny to the body or the mind those things. And train the mind to live happy in spite of those things. That is called removing the attachment. And at a deeper level, the rasa for it, the pleasure that I derive out of it, that has to be removed, nirmulya. Then that attachment will go. We are not attached to anything for its own sake. We are attached to it because it is a source of pleasure or joy to me. That pleasurable aspect is my attachment, the cause of my attachment. That has to be removed, nirmulya. Because the mind feels that if I drink coffee, there's so much of happiness. It's not because of coffee, because of that pleasure that the tongue gets when I taste that coffee. Anything for that matter. I am so attached to this person. Not because of that person only, because of the pleasure that I get when I enjoy with that person, the joy that I get. For whatever reasons it can be. Now I am attached to that. And because I am attached to that joy, then I am attached to the person or whatever is the cause that brings me that joy. So when we say Vishayeshu Ragam Nirmulya, a lot of that is also our own mind superimposition. The tongue gets a pleasure, but we have equated that. Tongue only gets the taste. We have equated that taste to pleasure. That's our conditioning. Because not everybody who drinks coffee feels it pleasurable. For some it is, they don't like it at all. So that's their mind's conditioning. So the object and the contact of the senses with the object by itself is not going to create any attachment. It is the mind which is going to superimpose. This is pleasurable, that is painful. And then it gets attached and it has aversion. So this raga dvesha. He says, Vishayeshu ragam nirmulya. And this is one. So we say secondary level of sannyas is this, to be free from your raga and dvesha. In the 5th chapter of the Gita, Bhagavan says, Gneyasa nitya sannyasi yo na dveshti na kankshati. Know that person to be sannyasi who does not have raga and dvesha. Only that person who comes to live like that with vairagya. No raga and dvesha means vairagya. That person is ready for the higher level of sannyas, which is called mukhya sannyas or gauna sannyas, which is dropping the doership. Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan. That I am that pure consciousness which is illumining this body, which is a city of 9 gates, and that self is not doer. It does not do anything, nor does it make anyone do anything. It just is. So the entire doership drops. That is a higher level of sannyas. So here he says, Vishayeshu ragam nirmulya. You remove this attachment, this superimposition. How will we remove that? Do the pratipaksha bhavana. Be away from the sense object. See the painful aspects of that. And at the same time, turn the mind towards the Lord, towards the real source of joy, not a superimposed idea and feeling. So one should not substitute saying, okay, if happiness is not in coffee, then okay, it is in green tea. Now I substituted the object, that's all. Now I will be attached to that green tea. When I'm away from this, then pratipaksha bhavana I do and then turn the mind within. I may drink anything else just for the sake of substitute the body may need, that's a different matter. But the attachment should not be that green tea now is a source of happiness. Source of happiness is my true nature, Bhagwan. They are the source of happiness. So the raga can be nirmulya. That's a very beautiful word. Remove it from the root cause. So what is the root cause of attachment? Is my superimposition. It's called moha. So this moha leads to that delusion. Moha is delusion. That delusion leads me to that attachment. So Bhagavan says in the Gita, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Upajayate. When I brood over sense objects and how pleasurable they are, then they give rise to attachment. And then I have a desire to get it. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. So that brooding has to stop, which is why we have to turn the attention within, on the self or on the Lord, whichever way. So Pratipaksha Bhavana will remove the mula, the cause of attachment, which is delusion. And delusion leads me to that brooding on the sense pleasure. So that can be removed. How to remove it? Do the opposite thinking. See the dosha and dukkha, Pratipaksha Bhavana. So slowly that attachment will just become weak. And this must be accompanied with self-control. I cannot keep drinking coffee and say that coffee is very, let us say, harmful. I have to be away from that. Deny and then do Pratipaksha Bhavana. So physically I don't engage and then mentally I am seeing the limitation of it. Then only I can come out of the attachment. It is not possible otherwise. Keep drinking coffee and keep thinking intellectually. It won't work. Or only deny at the body level and don't think intellectually. Don't think of the false notion of happiness in that coffee. So if I stop thinking of that, I only deny to the body, the coffee is only suppression. It won't lead to evolution. So both must be done. Then this Vishayeshu ragam nirmulya. Then this will go out. Then what should be done? Sanyasya cha sarva karma. Then you renounce all karma. Now, when he says renounce all karma, what he means is all selfish karma, because nobody can renounce all karma. We cannot, as long as the body is there, some karma will happen. So that we cannot stop. But we can renounce all selfish actions. Because if raga and dvesha is gone, selfishness survives on raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion. Because I want to be happy, so I want some pleasure. So whatever I'm attached to will give me pleasure, and whatever I feel is a source of pain, I will have aversion towards that. So this selfishness strengthens because of raga and dvesha. When I remove that raga and dvesha, that selfishness becomes so much lesser. So he says, Sanyasya cha sarva karma. All selfish actions you just drop. Then what is the motive to do any action? Chitta Shuddhi, purity of the mind, Seva Bhav, evolution in terms of understanding happiness is inside, not outside. So the karma happens only for the purpose of duty, for Seva, for Chitta Shuddhi. So Sanyasya cha sarva karma means drop selfish actions. Action may remain same externally. I am still working maybe in the office, doing work at home, going into the society, fulfilling my obligatory duties. All that I can do. But internally, what is the bhav? Not for me. So that what we saw earlier, no? Tanmana shodhanam karya. Mind becomes purified. That this is not for me. This is to serve the people. How best can I serve? What is my contribution to the world? What did I do to my family? In that way, genuinely with selflessness, where I don't need anything for myself, because what I think that I need, that that is the cause of my bondage. Manohi avidya, it was said. The more I strengthen this the more I am strengthening ignorance. So one who has understood properly that this is my cause of suffering will learn to drop selfishness. It's very strange it is. What is difficult? To hold on or to drop? So if I want to hold on, that is a lot of effort. This to hold on this book, one goes on putting so much effort just to hold. Dropping is easy. Once I drop it, I'm free. Holding on now, my hand is also bound. I have to put effort also. I have to wait also. So much of time, energy, everything just to hold. If I have to keep it is easy. Just keep it down. And then my hand is free. No weight, no effort, nothing. This selfishness, we hold on and on and on and on. Such a burden it is on our head and the whole life. One is miserable, one makes others also miserable because of selfishness. What did I get? What did I get? What did I get? One goes on living in that insecurity. The thing is, Bhagavan has given so much and still the mind remains insecure. That is the problem with that selfishness. So one who understands that this mind itself is the bondage, that it does not operate out of sattva guna, it operates out of rajas and tamas. So that is selfishness. So when it has understood that very clearly, the pain of selfishness, when we have understood well, selfishness is the cause of my sorrow, not people outside. Selfless people are never hurt because they didn't want anything from outside. If I expect something only, I will get disappointed. They know very clearly happiness is not anywhere outside, it is my nature, and they turn within. They keep doing work outside in the form of seva, but no false expectation. If you remember earlier also I have given this quote. Gurudev used to say that when expectations are false, disappointment is natural. If I live a selfish life and expect that my life will be most peaceful, harmonious, beautiful, impossible. That's a false expectation. Somewhere I will fight, I will crib, I will complain. It will go on. Hence when he says Sanyasya cha sarva karma, this wise person, having removed attachment towards objects, drops all selfishness. Then what will that person do? Such Shraddhaya. How did he do this? Because that person has firm faith that there is a higher aspect of life, there is a higher reality. Such Shraddhaya. in the existence of God or the self, truth, whatever name we give, that person has faith that it exists and it is the real source of happiness. So with that faith, because one has done some satsang, one has gained the knowledge, one knows there is this higher reality, that is my true self. And right now identifying with one body, one jiva, I have become so limited, and then I am suffering in this world while living, and after death, cycle of birth and death, again take another birth. So that person has thought through properly and knows that there is a pure consciousness, that is the self, which is the source of all bliss and happiness, whatever I am seeking. So Sat Shraddhaya, with that faith in the existence of the higher, this person starts the Jnana Sadhana. So goes to the Guru, listens to the truth, the Mahavakya especially from the Guru, reflects on it. So Shravana Adi Nishtha. Adi means Manana Nididhyasana. Shravana Adi Nishtha means firm abidance in this Jnana Sadhana. Shravan Mana Nididhyasana. So we should ask ourselves that if I am a seeker, have I done these things? That did I remove my attachment towards sense object? Or even still going little more deeper, which is that sense attachment or emotional attachment that I am right now trying to overcome? Sadhak's life is sadhana. So sadhana is not just remembering Bhagwan. Sadhana is also removing what is the source of my sorrow. So removing these attachments. So what is that attachment right now that I am working on to purify my mind? But he said, Tan mana shodhanam karyam prayatnena. So effort has to be put for both. Like you see in a gardening, one is to sow the seeds and then water it, manure is put, a proper sunlight is given to it. So it will start growing. But other is along with that regular watering, putting manure, one has to weed out also, because there are weeds which will grow all around it. If we don't remove those weeds out, they will take away the nutrition which has to go to the plant. So both have to be done. Weed out the unnecessary and nourish that which is the plant, the necessary one. So both we have to do. So tanmana shodhanam karyam, purify the mind. So what is that which I am thinking right now is the source of my sorrow, which I am trying to eliminate? Which attachment? Is it attachment to sleep, attachment to some sense object, attachment to some people or some way of living? It can be anything. But what is my struggle right now to remove that attachment? Which attachment am I removing? Or have I become very comfortable that what is going on is very nice? Then that mind will bind. So consciously, Vishayeshu Raga Nirmulya, Sanyasya Sarva Karma. How much selfless am I acting every day? Is my self-importance reducing or not? If somebody praises me and does not praise me, does it make a difference to me? Did I enjoy the work more than the result of the work? Did I do it because I do it with a sense of seva bhava and dedication, or did I do it because I want some praise and recognition? So these are things to introspect. When one has done these, then Shravanadi Nishtha, one will become firm. So every single day, Nishtha means firm abidance. So Shravanadi Nishtha means listen, reflect, meditate. Any of the three or all the three? Am I able to spend time and gain abidance? So gaining abidance meaning one becomes absolutely clear about it. No doubts at all. And it becomes part and parcel of oneself. Nishtha means that. Stha means to sit, settle. Nishtha means the mind settles down in that properly so that it will not waver. There are no more doubts about it. So when one listens to the Mahavakya, Tattvamasi or Aham Brahmasmi, so many Mahavakyas are there. And one is listening to Vedanta itself, that I am not the Jiva, I am that pure consciousness. Shravana Nishtha means to gain the clarity that yes, the essence of entire knowledge or the purpose of this whole life is to know that I am pure consciousness. Tatparya avadharanam, Shravanam Nama Tatparya avadharanam. To determine the essence, and the essence is that Jiva is one with Brahman. Now, intellectually, at least I must have that grasp that yes, Jiva is equal to Brahman. But now doubts will be there. So, remove them with Manan. So, Manan Nishtha means no doubts. Intellectually, one is absolutely clear that yes, Jiva is Brahman. In the first stage, scriptural knowledge says Jiva is Brahman. It has not become my conviction. I have determined the essence of the scripture that whatever it is, the essence is I am Brahman. That's what the scripture is trying to say. But I am still not convinced about it. Intellectually, I have still a few doubts. So then through reflection, get the complete intellectual conviction. So it becomes my conviction that I am Brahman, intellectually. Now the challenge is from there, how to remove the false notion that I am the Jiva. Information is still here. Intellectual conviction is an important step. Without that, the next step won't happen. The next step is nididhyasana. The bhavana is not transformed yet. So that bhavana is viparita bhavana. It is opposite. I know I am Brahman, but I act like a Jiva. Because I still think I am the body. So with all those earlier sadhanas, when the mind has become purified, then I can sit quietly for nididhyasana and say, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am not the mind, I am not the body. All the negation can happen. If Shravan and Manan is done, then only nididhyasana will happen. This negation and assertion, that is called nididhyasana. And one who gets a nishtha, now what is a nishtha here? Nididhyasana nishtha means the jiva bhav goes. That is called Shravana Adi Nishtha. So depending on my level of evolution, whichever step I need, so sometime I need to constantly study and then reflect on it. So for some time study reflection will go on. And when the clarity comes intellectually, then study, reflection, contemplation, all the three. Proportion I may vary. In the beginning I study much more to determine the essence. Then I reflect more. Study becomes lesser. Then the reflection becomes more and I start contemplating. Study becomes much lesser. That is if I have time paucity. Otherwise you can continue all the three also beautifully. Same proportion. But what is important is the nishtha. Sure. It's not about number of books. It can be just one book. But I read that one book properly, determine the essence, clear my doubts, meditate, realize. So that is called Shravanadi Nishtha. So with purified mind, Jnana Sadhana has to be done. So purification of the mind is the means. Jnana Sadhana is a direct means. Then the Jnanam that rises, that is called Mukti, Moksha. So now he says here, all this one should do. Rajasvabhavam sadhunoti buddhehe. Then this person will be able to drop this Rajasvabhava. Rajasvabhava here does not mean only restlessness. Rajasvabhava here means the misapprehension that I am the Jiva. See, for the wrong identification, not wrong identification, non-apprehension. Non-apprehension is tamoguna and misapprehension is rajoguna. So that when he says rajasvabhavam here, it means that I remove the rajoguna, which is misapprehension that I am the jiva, I am the karta, I am the bhukta. This false notion that I have of jiva bhav, that I remove. Now you see, this Manomaya Kosha, when we see from which verse onwards he has given to us, from 167. 167 to 182 is all the description of Manomaya Kosha, what to do, how to purify, what it is, all that is given. This 183 is actually the verse of negation, that I am not the mind, I am the Atma. Why I am not the Manomaya Kosha? 5 reasons he gives. And these are the 5 reasons why we say that Atma is not Manomaya Kosha, which means I am not Manomaya Kosha. It is only an equipment I have. So now let us see. Manomayo na pibhavet paratma yadyantavantatva no yadyantavatvat parinami bhavat dukhatmakatvad vishayatva hetoho drashta hi drishyatmataya na drishtaha. So 5 reasons why Atma is not the mind. Manomaya na api bhavet paratma, the supreme Atma. Remember the question of the seeker. This whole response is because of the 7 questions he asked earlier. In that he said, Ko asau anatma paramakka atma. What is the anatma and what is the supreme Atma? Ko asau anatma paramakka atma tayor viveka kathameta duchyatam. And then how to do the vivek. So he is saying that why this Atma is not, why this Manomaya Kosha is not that supreme Atma, bhavet paratma. So what are they? What are the reasons? 5 reasons. First reason, Adyantavantatvat, because it has a beginning and it has an end. It has a beginning and it has an end means what? So when I wake up, this mind starts becoming active. It is there in the waking state, it is there in the dream state. It becomes unmanifest in the deep sleep state. Again it comes back in the waking. So as though it has a beginning, it has an end. That is one way to understand. Atma does not go through any of these ups and downs. It does not become manifest, unmanifest, comes, goes, no. So it does not have beginning and end. In all the 3 states it is same, illumining. And because of the Atma only we know the mind has now become unmanifest, the mind is now manifest, all that. So beginning and end. Then Parinami, it has modifications. Parinami abhavat. Parinami bhavat, because of the nature of change. So even in the waking and dream when it is there, it goes on modifying every single moment. So many thoughts, feelings, they come, they go, it keeps changing. The Sakshi is a witness, the Atma is a witness. It goes on illumining every single thought that passes. Like the movie projector, that bulb, so the light illumines every single photograph. And when it moves at a particular pace, 25 frames per second or something, then that illusion of whole movement happens. Otherwise it's all photographs. The bulb is illuminating. So in the same way, Atma is just illuminating. If the mind is active in the waking dream state, it illumines the changes, all the thoughts. If the mind becomes unmanifest, it illumines the absence of all thoughts. But Atma doesn't get involved in any of them. It's only a illuminer. So, Adyantavantatvat, it has beginning and end. Now remember, this beginning and end is not in that sense of when did the mind begin, when did the mind end. No. Mind has no beginning. But mind will end with the realization of the self. So it's not referring to that beginning and end. Right now this is referring to manifest and unmanifest state. So when it comes up in waking, we say it is begun. Waking and dream. When it goes into deep sleep, we say it has ended. Because only when the mind is there, world is experienced. When mind is not there, world is not experienced. What was seen earlier, no? Manomayam Vishwam. This mind is the whole world. So beginning and end means that waking dream is beginning, deep sleep is the end. And even in the waking dream, parinami bhavat, because it goes on changing. So that is two. Atma doesn't change, Atma does not have a beginning and end. So they are completely different characteristics. Then dukkhatmakatvat, it goes through so much of pain and suffering. Why it goes through pain and suffering? Because of rajas and tamas actually. And also because of its false identification that I am this jiva. Otherwise, the nature of the mind is sukha. In what sense? The mind is made up of 5 elements, sattvic aspect of 5 elements. So the nature of the mind is detachment, the nature of the mind is purity, the nature of the mind is knowledge, happiness. All this is the default nature of the mind. But not knowing this, identified with the sense objects, with the body, creating so much of I and mind, now this mind has become source of so much of sorrow and pain. So dukkhatmakatvat, cause pain to oneself, sorrow to oneself, cause pain and sorrow to others. But the nature of Atma is exact opposite, Sukha Swarupa. See, even Sattva Guna, mind is made up of Sattva Guna. Even that Sattvic happiness is actually limited because it will be replaced with something else. It is finite. So from infinite bliss standpoint, even that is pain only. Even the pleasures that we get in the world, temporary pleasures, from infinite bliss standpoint, they are pain because they leave us hankering after pleasure more and more. They leave a craving behind. And anyway, even while it lasts for such a short time. Suppose one watches a very nice movie, or this IPL is going on right now. So one watches a match. How much lasts? It will last for 3 hours, 4 hours. Over after that. So it is temporary. Compared to the infinite bliss, even the temporary pleasure or a sattvic joy also is a pain. So either ways we see, whether through sattva guna or through rajas and tamas, dukkhatmakatva. The nature of Atma is bliss where it doesn't depend on anything at all. And all the time it is blissful because it's infinite. So see the opposite characteristics. Atma does not have a beginning and end, mind has beginning and end. Atma doesn't change, mind goes on changing. Atma is of nature of constant bliss, mind is of the nature of dukkha, constant dukkha. Then Vishayatva hetoho, dukkhatmakatvat Vishayatva heto. It gets attached to the sense objects. And that becomes the cause of its sorrow. Atma doesn't get attached to anything. Atma doesn't depend on anything. It is free, independent. Mind actually needs Atma. Atma doesn't need the mind. Only when Atma is illuminating, mind can function. But when mind is unmanifest, when the mind is not functioning also, Atma remains as it is. So Vishayatva heto. And drashtahi drishyatmataya na drishtaha. So this Vishayatva hetu also means that mind becomes object. Vishaya means object. So Atma is the subject, mind is the object. That's what I was saying. Subject remains without the object, but object cannot remain without the subject. That's the dependence. So this mind has these 5 complete opposite characteristics. It has beginning and end. It modifies. It is the source of complete sorrow. Becomes an object. So it remains dependent on the subject. 4. And what is the fifth one? Drashtahi drishyatmataya na drishtaha. This mind drashtahi drishyatmataya na drishtaha. The subject never becomes the object. Meaning, drashta na drashtaha. The seer, the subject, never becomes the seen. The mind is that which is the seen. Drishyatmataya na drashtaha. Atma is the drashta. It will never become the seen, but the mind is the seen. So it becomes, so one is the seer, one is the seen. Mind is the seer, sorry, the Atma is the seer, mind is the seen. This Atma will never become the mind. Atma will never become the object. Which means this only, that the subject can remain completely independent, but the object cannot remain. Object needs the subject. Subject never becomes the object. Subject never becomes the seen. Drashtahi drishyatmataya na drashtaha. But interesting thing here is that this subject only can appear as the object also. But subject will never become that. In what context? Atma is illumining this mind, and through that perception is happening of the whole world. Without this subject, this mind which is the object cannot further experience anything in the world. So in that sense, one says that Atma is illumining the mind which experiences the whole world. And so what we think is I, this mind, is the subject, and this is the world of objects. But actually the fact is I am the Atma illumining this mind, which further illumines the world, and the experience of the objects happens. Atma will never become this I. But today by ignorance, I think I am this. So that's the Vivek has to be done. Drashtahi drishyatmataya na drashtaha. Drashta will never become the drishta. Though it appears like that, it only illumines. See in this, in this commentary of Gurudev, the last paragraph, that's why Gurudev says this. The mind is identified with the objects. What we see around us is the seer in another form. The subject and the object are really one and the same. When the subject is projected through the mind, it appears as though it is a pluralistic world. So Atma illumining the mind, projection happens. But in fact, it has no reality. So this world by itself has no reality. It's a projection. In as much as where the subject is not, the world of object can never be. So at the moment, I think this mind is the subject and the world is projected. So when the mind is not there, world is not there. But the Atma is the one which is illumining the mind also. So the nature of Atma to remain all the time and the nature of the mind to come and go, they are the opposite. So the Atma will never become the mind. The Drashta will never become the Drishya. So he says, through the world of objects, the mind looks at itself. The subjective subject looking at the objective subject is the experience of the world of objects. Like the child sucking its own thumb and enjoying it. Remove the thumb, it cries. Remove the object, we cry. The Atman does not identify with the objects. It is a knowing principle. This being so, mind cannot be the Atman. So it is a mind which is identifying with the objects, mind which is withdrawn, objects disappear. But Atma is only illuminer. Atma doesn't do anything. So Atma's nature is completely different. Mind's nature is completely different. So these 5 reasons are given to say that why Atma is not, why Manomaya Kosha is not the Atma. This whole thing is the negation. Now this negation of the mind, we have to do here. if we have learned to withdraw the senses, remove the attachments, purify the mind, with the pure mind, I have to say that I am not any of these. I am not the Annamaya Kosha, I am not the Pranamaya Kosha. Now the third one is I am not the Manomaya Kosha. Which means all the qualities that the mind goes through, I am not going through them. These 5 points are there. That why I am not this mind, why I am not the Jiva. Mind has beginning and end. Atma does not have beginning and end. Mind goes through complete modifications. I don't go through modifications. And the mind is characterized by pain and sorrow. My nature is bliss, Anand Swarup Atma. Fourth, mind is an object to be seen, and mind gets bound to the object. I am free, I am not dependent. And fifth, this Atma is the seer, it will never become the seen. But the mind becomes both the seer and the seen. Gets identified with the objects, again objects withdraw. So this goes on between the mind and the objects. But Atma is illuminer of this. So it's completely different. So this is a negation of the Manomaya Kosha. And how I am not the mind, these are the 5 points. So one should remember, actually one should make, in one sheet you can write down, why I am not the body, reason 1, 2, 3. Why I am not the Pranamaya Kosha, reason 1, 2, 3. Why I am not the Manomaya Kosha, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Those reasons are given. And that is what one has to bring to the mind again and again in Nididhyasana, that why I am not each of these, and destroy the Jiva Bhav, the false identification with each kosha. So for today we will stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.